Okay, here we go. Hello, everybody. I'm Chris Caligari, and I'm your host of this week's installment of the KubeVirt community meeting. And allow me to share my screen. All right. We have quite a list of attendees. So, is there anybody new here that would like to say hi and just give a brief mention of how you're using KubeVirt? No? Okay. Okay, let's begin. First agenda item is from Ryan Hallisey, talking about a new SIG. Go ahead, Ryan. Is Ryan with us?
Are you on mute,
Ryan? Are you here today?
I might be able to cover for him. I briefly met up with him.
Okay.
Hey, can you hear me?
Oh, okay,
there he is.
Ah, here we go. Okay, sorry, I'm on my phone. So I've been you probably saw the mailing list thread, and I've been talking to a few folks in the community about the possibility of starting a new SIG focused on scale and perf. And from a lot of the conversations that I've had in the community, there's been a lot of people that I found that have been looking at this in different facets, and it's a fairly large area and topic. And so I wanted to look at it or some of the specific topics more closely. So I put together a document that's linked for some of the areas that we can explore, not exclusive to those areas, but some of those areas that we can look at, as well as a mission statement for the group. So the whole goal is that we want to look in areas that, and elevate some work that's focused on perf and scale, and meet at least to start off bi-monthly on Thursday. So it would be for this week, we're planning to have a meeting. So it'll be tomorrow at the exact same time slot as this meeting. So it's 1400 UTC, 7 Pacific time, 10 Eastern. We'll look to have our first meeting. We'll just kind of introduce things and kick things off, talking about perf and scale. So if you're interested in it at all, or doing any work in that area, would love to have you, and we can discuss any sort of topics that are going on and try and look and solve some problems in that area.
Hey, Ryan.
Yes.
My only concern is your first meeting is tomorrow, and that kind of interferes with an all things open event plan that we've had for a week.
Yeah, I understand. Some people have reached out. So if you want, I can push it back a little, maybe like an hour or something. But so that's fine. If you think that would be better, I can do that.
Yeah, at least for that first one, because I rescheduled that thing twice now, and I don't want. And we have a Friday deadline to get our paper submitted.
Okay. So, yeah. So would 1 hour later be fine?
Yeah. Cool.
Okay.
Just
yeah,
for
that's fine.
Just for tomorrow. Just for tomorrow, and then you can.
Well, yeah, sure. I think that some people have mentioned in the mailing list as well about the time, because I understand there are a lot of conflicts and but it's good to see there's interest. So I'll do a poll for this after kind of the first one. So I'll move this one back an hour to 1500 UTC, and then I'll follow up after our first call. We'll do a poll and kind of get some more insight into what are the time zones that work for people, and we'll find a good slot for it. So just kind of finding the first one is we'll just to kick things off is what we want to start with. So I'll move it back an hour, so 1500 UTC. I'll let everyone know on the mailing list. Okay.
So 1 hour later.
Okay.
Or 1 hour earlier.
1 hour later. So it's right now it's scheduled at 1400 1400 UTC. So I'll move 1 hour later.
Okay.
To 1500.
Or maybe. So I'm Marcelo. So we talked through Slack before. So I'm not sure if I can join because we'll be, middle night in Tokyo. So maybe it's too late for me, but we can synchronize.
Yeah, I understand. So what we could do, like I
Later.
said, we'll try and work with the time a little bit. For the first one, we're just gonna have to, we'll just go with, we'll see what we can do on the first one, and then like I said, we'll do a we'll do a doodle poll and we'll get some more feedback. The reason I want to get a first one out of the way is just to get a general idea of what what people have, or what people are, what times on work, or what works with this time, and then we can work to try to incorporate more folks. So keep an eye out on the mailing list, and we'll try to make it work for everybody.
Yeah, I think Erza and Nelson can join. I don't know if you saw the context, but Erza, Nelson, and I, we are from IBM team, and we are working directly with KubeVirt in a collaboration, and we are taking also some initiatives to analyzing the KubeVirt control plane performance and scalability. We are proposing also some works on that, but I think Nelson will join tomorrow, and then he can synchronize and see and talk to you guys. So, and we can also
excellent.
talk offline. That
sure.
Marcelo, the hour later works also perfect for me, and I'll be there as well. So
oh, great. Yeah. Okay.
It's right after our perf sync, so I'll go there as well.
Oh, great. Yeah.
Great.
Sounds good.
Okay.
All right. Thank you, Ryan.
Thanks.
Okay. Next topic is, can we deprecate IP tables in favor of NFT tables? NF tables.
Yeah. Hi. So NF tables are like the next, are deprecating the IP tables in most places, but then it already exists in Fedora, RHEL, or Red Hat products, and recently also I saw it in Debian. It's also the default, and now also Ubuntu has it in the last release. So my question is, can we say that we can declare that we are deprecating IP tables, so we will not have to support them?
I'm all for NF tables. I really love it, but not so fast. So the reason that the NF tables and IP tables are slow to be adopted is you don't take the same approach in NF tables. Now each table needs a name, and there's no default. Like before, it was just like input with capital input or forward with capital forward. Now you can't predict what somebody's table names are ahead of time. So if there's a path forward for the literal technical, like nitty gritty details at the low level, great, let's move forward. Otherwise, I'm not sure we can just deprecate IP tables.
Isn't NetFilter itself getting deprecated?
Not to my knowledge.
I believe so. It's,
no. NetFilter is NF tables. NetFilter is the kernel implementation is NetFilter is the new thing. IP tables or IP chains is what it used to be. IP tables has been.
Oh my God! Like 25 years ago, Stu, really? IP chains.
Okay, sorry. Right. So yeah, we should not have used that word. But point being, NF tables is the current, is the new, is what we're moving to. Unless I completely missed reality in the last year or so. But yeah, to Edward's point though, this is something that's salient we should discuss, but I think we need a path forward at a technical level before we can just jump.
I apologize, I'm only a half a coffee in.
So just to clarify, the current state is that if we detect in KubeVirt at the moment, if we detect that there is NF table, it exists and it works, then we use it. This is the primary way to configure it. If it's not found, we go to the second option, is to use IP tables. And even in that case, I think in any any Red Hat, any Fedora, CentOS, this kind of solutions. We will also use probably the NF tables behind the scenes, because the IP tables that you see there is just a translation layer. It's not really IP tables behind in the backend. So I think the only place where this may exist is in other distributions, like maybe an older Ubuntu, for example. But so that's why I raise it. I do recognize it's not, we cannot just deprecate it without it being deprecated or removed from all the other distributions. But I think the current state is that we do support both in the code, and that's like pretty problematic, because we are adding things all the time. Like I think recently it was about integration with Istio, and later we'll have to add the max spoofing stuff. So anytime we add something, we will have to support both, so both in NF table format and in IP table format. So the question is, if we cannot deprecate now, how can we plan so we will declare deprecation in the future?
We don't have a great deprecation policy right now, which I think is something that makes these discussions hard. So we kind of have to declare what that is. Like, how do we remove things, and what's the predictable, like what's the procedure that we go through? Like, we announce it, and then we wait how many releases before we actually remove it, and we let people raise objections and things like that. We don't like, I'm fine with deprecating IP tables, but how to go about doing that isn't defined. So that's what makes it difficult for me.
Yeah, that's why I raised it here. And there is also, adding to what you said, there is also another problem that we are not declaring on what are the, or maybe we do and I don't know it, on which nodes operation system we support deploying KubeVirt, because currently I don't know any, and that also can affect this, one of the things. So, for example, we are currently only, if I'm not mistaken, we are only testing, our main tests are done on CentOS stream, right? So this is
It's
the
Fedora.
only.
Oh, wait.
No,
Yeah, I guess you're right.
the
It
node.
is.
So we are like.
I don't know if upstream KubeVirt, because that's the forum and discussion here, the context. I don't know if we have an official policy about what we do and do not support in terms of the base OS.
No, we don't.
Yeah. But this is a problem, because this is what we can break. I mean, we can assume something now, and it may not be there on a different distribution, but we don't test it, and we don't even declare what we are saying.
I think this is in general a difficult question, because I mean, we use now CentOS Stream for testing mostly, but what we really depend on to 99% is the kernel version to be compatible with it. If there are issues there, then we may have issues. But it's really less about the operating system. It's more about the kernels.
Well, we had an issue with SC Linux on Ubuntu, just because wasn't SC Linux not used or something like that by default?
Yeah, I know about two things. One is SE Linux, which is kind of an optional thing which we support, which we have on our test infrastructure, which broke once. And the other thing is what Edward mentioned with IP tables and NF tables that are basically our two switches right now. The rest
that we know of. Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess it's all about, I mean, in the what you said about the kernel is right, but I think here and in the SC Linux case, it's just the kernel module that is either deployed or not deployed on the node. So yes, it's like in the basic case is indeed the kernel and the kernel modules that it loads, but if we think about it, the end result is what matters. So if we can deploy on a specific Ubuntu version, then, or we can deploy on any other distribution, then we at least need to say what we tested on. So it will not be surprising. Or we need to say what kernel modules are expected to be there.
So
Yeah.
there's orgs out there that are, sorry guys, there's orgs out there that are running on Gen 2 and Arch. So let's not leave those guys out.
I suppose this is also related to what CI do we have? I mean, if we would have a CI for that, and somebody would donate a node, then maybe.
I would like to contribute something here for you guys. We didn't reach an agreement with Red Hat to deploy the solution, and I put on the chat window what we're gonna use. This is a, let's say, an alternative to CentOS, since on December we're gonna have not match anymore CentOS 8 against Red Hat Enterprise. Okay.
Didn't Rocky Linux become the official downstream fork?
Yes, but these guys have like enterprise support, for you
I see.
understand.
Gotcha. Yep, understood.
We need to have like an enterprise support for 100,000 bare metal servers.
I just want to mention regarding the NF table support. I mean, for Debian and Ubuntu, I mean, Debian even kind of replaced IP tables with NF tables, then kind of use the NF. What was it? They have some variant of IP table. Yeah, IP tables NFT layer, which interprets all existing IP tables roles into net filter. So that's, I think, since Debian 10, if one reads correctly, and then variants would then follow with Ubuntu 2004, which is the latest LTS. It should be supported and on by default, but if anything, it's all included in packages for previous variants of those. I can check other operating systems if you need. Arch Linux also, I just checked, has extensive documentation. It's just a package install.
I mean, even now we are not testing with IP tables really. So it's tested only on like customers clusters, I guess. So I mean, can we just go forward with it and document that our dependency is not a specific OS, but our dependency is NF tables on the host, and announce deprecation period of like month or two, and then just go all forward for NF tables, and maybe do the same thing for like the kernel version if that's our dependency. You know.
Yeah,
the problem is the kernel versions aren't the same as the upstream Linux release. It gets really hard to correlate.
Yeah, I'm even wondering, what do you all use IP tables for? Because I mean, if NF tables is the default backend when using IP tables, is there any real difference into what would be written differently or the performance differences? I'm sorry, I'm unfamiliar with KubeVirt's backend and how it involves IP tables right now.
So the IP tables, go for it, Eddie.
Oh, I just wanted to answer about this one. In essence, there is performance things, but I don't think this is the main reason that I'm raising it. There is a performance thing, but it's not that important at this moment, at least. Maybe in the future, if we need to support some performance-oriented traffic, but at this stage, it's just about our maintenance inside the code base, so we'll not have to worry about it. And I'm raising it again. I'm raising it here just so we'll have a way to do it even in the future. At some point, we need to do it, I guess. So I prefer to raise it early and start doing something to make it happen.
Hi, could someone
just to clarify, we are talking about the IP tables on the compute host, right? On the worker node, right?
we are using currently firewall rules inside or IP tables or NF table rules inside the Virt launcher pod, the pod that runs the virtual machine. So we have the rules, for example, to support NAT or what kind of other
right, but those are, but that's the IP table mechanism of the entire host, right?
Yeah, it's
the problem is
okay.
Right. So the problem is not the OS support. You need to remember that there are customers out there that have assets that depend on IB tables. They already have automated scripts and some more automation that is not related to KubeVirt and deploy firewalls and so on related to IP tables. Yeah. So we need to consider that as well.
Well, that's correct, but on the other hand, it's we are not saying that we are able to deploy KubeVirt on any operation system.
I understand. I'm just saying it's. I think Peter said, or someone that Peter, that we need to put that as a dependency. I'm fine with that. I wouldn't go with the OS, right? You just want to mention that you must have NF tables there, right? That's the whole.
I guess you touched a sensitive topic. it's
like,
if you take KubeVirt and say I require this is like a very general. If you take KubeVirt and say I'm able to deploy it on some node, and you can specify what that node needs to support. Like for example, what is the minimum kernel? What is the kernel module that you expect there to exist? Then you are opening yourself to whatever deployment anyone wants to do. But if you want to say to limit yourself to I'm willing to deploy on Debian X and on Ubuntu Y and on CentOS or Fedora X, then it's a different story. Then you limit yourself to a specific setup, and if anyone wants to try something else, they will have to do it.
No, I fully agree with you. And there is this a kind of direction of, okay, we say we officially support only what's inside our CI, which is not reasonable to do currently, right? But I'm just saying it's a general problem that at some point we will probably encounter, because we can postpone that, but there is such a variance out there that we need to have some kind of a policy. I don't know what is the policy, but we need to put some policy.
I think that specifically in this case, it's a bit easier because most distros.
Sorry, everybody. Looks like you have a microphone problem, and I muted you instantly. Can you jiggle your wires or see if you can fix it?
It's probably the mic volume.
Oh, yeah. Hello?
You broke, Peter.
Did we lose? Oh, looks like he's still here.
So I guess, yeah, having kind of taken a step back and to let the conversation go its course, I know that Debian Stretch has NF table support. Debian Buster, it's the default, and by Debian Bullseye, I think that IP tables is outright deprecated. But I don't think, and that's just an example. And I know that Ubuntu is based on Debian testing, so I think that they're probably already to the point that they're saying IP tables is deprecated. I don't know about SUSE or any of the other major distros. So I think that it's still too soon for us to be aggressive about saying we will support IP tables. We could certainly message and start the messaging process that we're going to start the deprecation process and not rush into anything yet, but at least make an official statement that we're planning to go that direction.
That sounds good to me.
Yeah, and if we finally define some deprecation timelines, I think it's fair to just write that IP table is currently not tested in RCI, so we don't know if it's working anyway, and that we will remove code traces after 12 months or something. But we need to define I would suggest to define on the KubeVirt project finally the deprecation deadlines.
Yeah, I think that's the first step, and I'm happy to take on that issue, and I'll interface with CNCF and the main Kubernetes project and see what they have, and bring it to our group, to our project.
Right now, I'm working on the deprecation for feature gates at least. Maybe that would be, I don't know, David. I want to still discuss with a few people, but that might be an overlap that we treat the same as features.
I was thinking that as well.
Yeah, I think we just need to really, well, there's a whole deprecation policy that we need to kind of work through. There's the removing stuff from our API, and then there's removing like default behaviors and like just enumerating these and talking about how they're handled. And we haven't done that.
I spent the whole day yesterday reading through the Kubernetes one, and actually it's more ambiguous sometimes than I thought. So we have something ahead of us. There's some parts not always clearly defined.
I would like to go one step back. Hey, this is Fabian. Andre, you mentioned that you were looking at having a different operating system. You would like to test that. Can you give a little bit more? Do you have a link to the email discussion if it took place?
Andre's video's on, and I don't think he's dialed into the discussion right now.
Ah, okay. Yeah, because I mean, I don't want to.
I can give you some context. He's got a large scaled out VDI infrastructure that he's selling to end users. He was in negotiations with Red Hat to run OpenShift dedicated and probably RHEL as well. And he mentioned this morning that the negotiations didn't succeed. And they decided to pivot their platform to Kubernetes community with KubeVirt community running on Alma Linux OS.
All right. I mean, that's great if they speak with Red Hat. What I'm more interested in is, I would like to understand. I mean, how he's envisioning to also test on Alma Linux and how relevant that is. So once he has audio, then we can pick up that discussion because I would be interested there. But if he can't, then that's good. Maybe we can speak about it next week.
It might be worthwhile to have a separate meeting with him to see how we can all work together and lay out some next steps. He said he's definitely interested in a deeper collaboration with the project. It looks like he's taking a phone call. Any lip readers out there? Thanks for joining us, Fabian.
You could thank me if I would bring any gifts, but I think I didn't bring.
Well, we always enjoy your presence.
I enjoy people, and I miss the conferences to see all people in real or for real.
Yes, indeed. Well, I'm going to suggest that we move on to the next topic. We need a deprecation policy. So Kevin and I can work through that as well as the feature gate and get something into the community project. everybody can comment on it. And then for the sake of the meeting here, and everybody else who wants to talk about something, let's move on for right now. Is everybody okay with that?
Thank you. I will wait for that that summary. Thanks.
All right. Thank you, Edward. Okay, Shirley, request for contribution for alert runbooks.
Yes, hi. I sent out an email today about that. And basically, well, we want to add runbooks for each alerts that we are sending, and to add to the alerts the URL to go to that runbook and to get an explanation about what is the URL, the alert for, how it impacts the system, how to diagnose your issues, and how to mitigate it. I created a slide deck, a shared slide deck with all the alerts that we have, and we want to be. I would like to ask for contributions for the content, and so if anyone that has the knowledge can contribute to that, it will be much appreciated. After that, I will take that and create PRs and do the process to integrate it into the KubeVirt monitoring repository.
Sounds good.
So the first slide there is an example, and if there are any questions, you can reach out to me, of course.
So I just caught the tail end of this because I was distracted. But this alert runbooks, I saw that there was just a presentation up. There was a GitHub repository for this as well, right? Maybe you just said that, yes. But do we have a link for that?
Yes. I can add the link to that. Okay. It's in the email thread that I sent out today. But I can add it here as well, of course.
Excellent. Yeah, I think this is really valuable, especially from an operations standpoint. People will find this useful for sure.
Definitely.
Yep.
Right. So if anyone can help with that effort, it will be much appreciated. And that's it.
And the policy moving forward is anytime we make an alert, we need to accompany it with a runbook.
Yes.
Okay. So we need to enforce that when we're doing reviews and things like that to make sure that there's a policy around how to, or a runbook around how to resolve or at least investigate the alert when it occurs.
Can we actually have a test case or post-submit job, which is or pre-submit to ensure that the runbook URL is set on on an alert once we submit, once somebody's submitting a PR? Like policy is always good, but it's always good if somebody's reminding us.
Yeah, so you're saying actually set it within the alert text, the link?
Oh yeah, it is, right? So you have your alert definition and there's an annotation point with that URL. If I'm not mistaken, right, Shelly? I mean, good stuff, by the way, Shelly.
Yes.
Right, yes. But I think, Fabian, I think that that annotation is not mandatory. So what you are saying is let's move it to be mandatory and force that during the testing.
Yeah, exactly. Simply to get to that pattern that a runbook really is needed. I think that would be, it's so helpful.
Yeah, I agree. I'm just saying that today it's not mandatory.
Yep.
I could imagine like an integration test that scrapes the metrics endpoint and checks if every entry has a runbook. Would that work?
It's not even in the metric. You just need to do that on the alert definition.
Oh, okay. Yeah, then it's easier.
It is also possible to unit test the alerts. Maybe that could be also useful to add to CI. There's this thing, this prompt tool thing. I put a link in the chat. That could be useful too.
I have a question about this. Is this alerts? We can consider them an API, because if you are going to test them or the text in them or anything like that, then we better not change them afterwards too much, right?
We only do it for fun, to change them. But just my 2 cents, I think that we wouldn't call them an API, although we strive for keeping them stable. And I think here we don't test like the names, but we would rather be ensuring that a runbook is provided alongside an alert. Otherwise, it's like saying, hey, something is wrong, but we don't really help you how to get out of the situation. And I think that's something that I would consider to be important, right? Simply to do this hygiene, however it's pronounced.
Yeah, so I'm just saying that, so no one will change this. We think that, oh, there is a typo now, we will change it, and it may not, how to say, it may not be easy to change. There are implications if someone changes something.
I actually think it might be a good idea to at least look on the options of having it API, because there are other implications that need to be improved there. For example, in the alert, you are putting the metrics name, but no one actually validate that that metrics name is actually a valid one. And if it's not, no error occur, it's just you are not going to get the alert. So there is a complete disconnect. So probably some forcing and structuring need to be done there in the framework.
Everybody is thinking deeply on these alerts.
Oh, I saw that I lost audio.
I just let the awkward silence go till to the red.
Until it got too painful.
All right. Well, let's move on from here. We've talked about this a couple of times. We'll see the GitHub issue for updating post submit job to ensure that runbook entries exist. And then if well, we're already trying to come up with a deprecation policy for 2 other features. Might as well apply to changing alerts around as well. Does that sound like a happy medium? Okay. Thank you, Shirley. This is really good stuff. As an old ops guy, nothing worse than not having runbooks on alerts. So it's gonna make our software even better operationally. Okay.
Thank you.
KubeVirt Go, debating whether and how to switch to Go modules.
Yes, that would be me. Hi. So
Andrea.
the situation is such that for the longest time, KubeVirt Go has been following the same versioning policy as the main C library, which is not using semver, and that has worked fine until now. But now we're seeing that newer version of Go, starting with 1.16, I believe, the default mode of operation is building modules, and you can still opt out of this behavior. But as I understand it, that's going away with Go 1.17. So it might be time for LibVirt to move to modules. The question is whether we should do that and how to do it in a way that minimizes the long-term pain for consumers. And so I raised the issue on the GitLab repo for LibVirt Go, and I would really love if people from the KubeVirt community, who are both one of the biggest consumers of the LibVirt Go library, and also clearly very well versed in the Go ecosystem and in the Go modules and all those topics, could into the discussion and help us out.
As far as I remember, you basically just never break any API, right? That's what you do with all the bindings and everything.
Right, that is definitely what we do with the C library, and that is also what the intention is with the language bindings. I cannot say for sure that we've never broken the language bindings in the past, because of course the design decisions are different. The API, the handling of API and ABI is also slightly different. Yeah. But that is definitely the intention, never to break the compatibility.
I don't know how strict Go is with December, but in theory you could just add something like an epoch in front, like you start to see the Go bindings with 1.7.2.0 or something, and that would just live in V1 then.
Right. The problem is that right now we are at V7.2.0.
Yeah, but the import paths are not yet adjusted to that, right? So you could just come up with the first epoch, I guess, if that would work, just as an idea.
Yeah, I don't think we should necessarily discuss this into details. Because there's a bit of discussion. There is, not in that issue specifically, but there is an issue that was linked from it that already contains a bunch of ideas and thoughts how we could do that. So it would be wonderful if a bunch of you, how many people feel like it, would go over that issue and just put your thoughts in there, and we can have a discussion in the GitLab issue and just try to figure out a way forward.
Yeah, thank you for the heads up.
Yeah, thank you in advance for the input.
Okay, Andrea, you have the next topic as well. Use additional temporary PDB for migrations.
No, that's me actually.
Oh, I'm only one cup of coffee in. I'm usually two at this point.
It's all right. So hi guys. So this point is about a PR that I posted, I think a week ago, something like that. And basically this changes how we protect the pod for, the VMIs while migrating. So like right now we create a PDB that protects two pods, the source pod and target pod. This PR changes that because some systems, like for example OpenShift, have an alert mechanism that when you have PDBs that protects more than one pod and you just have one pod alive, basically they, it's not, they complain. So basically this changes that so that we create a PDB with that protects one pod. And when a migration happens, just for the duration of the migration, we create an additional PDB that protects two pods. But it is a bit controversial because basically means that while the migration is in flight, you will have two PDBs, one protecting just the source pod and one protecting both. And the documentation, the Kubernetes documentation says that this is kind of allowed, And what happens is that pods that have overlapping PDBs, they will just be not evicted anytime. So this is kind of the side effect, which in practice should be fine for us because we just want no pods to be evicted while doing the migration. But yeah, I mean, I just wanted to discuss this, like if anyone has feedback, ideas, and how to proceed with this.
So is it any two pod disruption budgets touching a single pod will prevent it from being evicted?
Yeah, but that means, for example, which is not our case, that if you have like min available set to, for example, 2, and you have 3 pods, so that means you can evict 1 pod. Since you have 2 PDBs, no pods will ever be evicted. So that's kind of a one side effect, but in practice, it's okay for us.
Actually, so in my opinion, this is fantastic. So in the event that you have a migration and you have 3 pods, that means one of them failed and it should be being terminated on its own independently anyway. But by definition, when we're using migration for the purpose of a node eviction, that's actually, we're trying to take care of the eviction. And so to time out and have our pods killed is bad anyway. So this is actually great to me.
The behavior is what we want. I think the concern and the thing that I'd like to investigate and hear other people's feedback on is we're using a side effect of a feature. I don't know if there's unintended consequences for this. Like, for example, when we used the pod disruption budget as we have it today, where we set that we need a minimum of 2 pods available whenever live migration is set for the eviction strategy, then we get the alert. So is there going to be another side effect if we add overlapping pod disruption budgets where something else occurs that is unexpected? It's doing something that wasn't intended for the use. So that always should kind of give us pause.
It's very unlikely that there are any effects, but there could of course be. Normally, Kubernetes doesn't care about these overlaps and they are per entity, but I don't know.
Yeah, just bear in mind that like it would anyway improve the situation, because right now when we create a PDB, we have, for example, OpenShift complaining all the time about this, because essentially if you never do a migration, it's going to be just 1 pod and a PDB set for 2. While if you have an alert, as you said, that alerts when you have more than 1 PDB for, overall, 1 pod, 2 pods, whatever, you're just going to have the alert being triggered only for the migration. So it's a tiny bit better anyway. I do understand. Yeah.
If we don't find any obvious downsides, as you say, I think it's better than what we have today. Still, it would also be great if we would finally look into that there is a pod disruption budget feature which is called max unavailable, which basically says don't allow the eviction of any pod which matches this. And this works with deployments, for instance, and replica sets and so on, but it does not work for custom resource definitions. As far as I've seen in the source code when checking this, there is no good reason for not supporting it. It's just like it was not a priority feature to add for custom resource definitions. So we should, I think, yeah, I mean, your change looks good. We should probably, or the approach looks good in your change. We should just probably also invest this time to add this. It shouldn't be too hard.
Roman, is that called max unavailable?
Max unavailable, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
It does not yet work with TRDs, or CRs, but it's really just about changing a few code paths as far as I've seen, and I don't think that there was anything on Kubernetes where people said, no, this should not work on CRDs. It was more like, it's not a high priority thing and no one added or tested the flow.
I agree. In the PR, I also said that probably but I mean, the best would be like merging that approach now, merging that PR, so that we kind of like fix this for, I mean, yeah, for OpenShift, for example, and then use some time to do this in Kubernetes, because that's probably going to take a long time. By the way,
sorry for interrupting, just because
Yep.
Chris just we know that max unavailable does not work right now. We should, however, work on Kubernetes to enable it.
Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry,
Also, the
go
same
ahead.
goes for Mina. Yeah. Sorry. The same goes for Mina Available, because Mina Available, I think for like default controllers, you can use it that with a percentage, but you can do that for custom controllers. So I mean, any of the two. But what I just wanted to say that the only side effect that seems to that you should be aware of when reading at least the Kubernetes documentation is that, of course, if you have a PDB which protects like, I don't know, 75% of the pods, something like that, so not 100% like we do, that doesn't work anymore if you have more than one PDB for a single pod or for the same set of pods. So that's the side effect. But like in our case, it doesn't. It kind of doesn't apply to us because we're good, because we want to always protect 100%.
One thing just leaves me a little uneasy is it's the dynamic nature of this, and I just want to throw this one other caveat out there and see what people think. When we're mutating or adding a new object, things like that, the controller that interprets that, there's a lag time. So we can commit, for example, this new pod disruption budget, and then we can immediately post a new pod. When does the pod disruption budget actually take hold? So is there any risk of us posting a new pod coming online, and eviction getting called and it not, like, what's the timing involved here? Is it so narrow that it's something we'll never have to worry about, the new pod disruption actually stopping the eviction after the new pod comes online? Or is there a concern there? I don't know. Like, that's just another piece that kind of concerns me.
I think that's I think that's a very good point. But I mean, I would expect that the two requests, so the creation of the PDB and then the eviction, are kind of serialized inside the API server so that they happen, I mean, that, nothing gets in the way. But I mean, if that can happen, I am not aware of any method to actually check with the whatever PDB controller that is inside Kubernetes that actually kind of like acknowledge the creation of the PDB and assures that the pods are protected. I mean, if there is this problem, I think like everyone is suffering it, but I wouldn't know how to actually check that the protection has started.
Yeah, I think that would be worth looking at the code if like, the operator needs to do something before protection starts. I don't know exactly how it works right now, or if it just needs to be present and it will be checked on deletion if it's there. What I'm a bit, because I quickly read through the GitHub issue now. What I'm concerned or want to make sure is that we're not relying on something that is not an actual feature that is exposed, like something the Kubernetes community might fix because it's not intended at some point and we get broken because we rely on it.
I think this is it's a bit of controversial part of this PR. I mean, the documentation states that this is expected. Like if you create multiple PDBs covering the same set of pods, no eviction will take place. So it actually says that. So okay. That's why I'm 100% sure that this works.
It's presented in a way of be careful because this is what occurs. It's like, exactly. Make sure you don't overlap, because if you do, then you won't get eviction. Like, it's not.
Exactly. Like this works, but it's said kind of like you shouldn't do this. So that's the part that sounds a bit dangerous.
So yeah, they warn people that it will happen, and there might be a wish to change that in the future, and that would impact us then.
Yeah, in theory, yes.
Okay. And just for me to understand, like, and what would be the difference to update the current disruption budget instead of creating a second one?
Because you have to, basically you can't modify it, so you have to delete it and recreate it. But this basic, like I think not in my PR, but in a PR that was done in a previous solution, the solution that was proposed was to have the PDB controller watching, so having a new informer on migration. So whenever you see a migration, it would create a PDB with the with 2 as minimum available. So by default, creating 1 as minimum available and then creating 2 when it would see migration. But as David pointed out in that solution, basically it's risky because there could be a race condition because the migration could have started already and 2 pods might already be there, and then you create a PDB just later and the eviction might have taken place already. So it's kind of
Yeah, I think my favorite will also be to see how quickly we can, if and how quickly we can fix it upstream, and I'd be willing to help with that. But yeah, for the rest, I'm not deep enough into the matter.
Can we silence the alert that's kind of causing all of this? Did we investigate that?
I did not, but I guess that would affect more people. I mean, a lot more people than what we can think of. So I don't know if that's viable.
By the way, it's not just OpenShift as far as I know. I think it's a normal Kubernetes event, so everyone sees it.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. Oh, wait, actually, I'm not 100% sure of that. Okay.
Really?
But if you say so. Sorry, I was thinking about, yeah, wrong thing. So where do we land on this? I feel like we just did a full circle.
So I think I would go with taking this in and then make it right in Kubernetes.
Okay, we can try it.
And it looks like Kevin has tagged himself on working upstream to make that max available feature work correctly.
Yeah, I'm not yet familiar with the component itself, but so if somebody wants to work on it, then who knows more about it, I'm happy to at least help. But yeah, I would be willing to help with upstream. I feel at home there.
Okay. Well, we're at 8 o'clock. Let me give a real quick 1-minute summary on events, and then we'll close out the meeting. Red Hat Summit is in progress. We have not had one question in our booth related to KubeVirt. Come on. We're awesome. Somebody's got to be interested in us. So, but that's the nature of these virtual summits. The huge projects like Fedora get all of the attention. Stu and I are going to host an All Things Open planning meeting tomorrow at, well, for me, it's going to be 7 a.m. Pacific time. So 10 a.m. Eastern and whatever your time will be in the European time zones. This thing is going to be awesome. An internet distributed Kubernetes cluster. Everybody providing their own Raspberry Pi or Intel NUC of some sort. So if you want to participate in this thing, join us tomorrow. There's an issue regarding the planning in the KubeVirt community repo. The meeting information is in that issue. Josh Burkus with the OSPO reached me yesterday late in the day and wants somebody to do a live podcast on YouTube to talk about KubeVirt. He has about 3,000 followers, So it's gonna be a low to medium popularity YouTube interview. So if you're interested in doing that, let's talk. Otherwise, I'm going to have to do it. I'm a really bad public speaker. Okay, that's all I have. Thank you, everybody. And we'll see you next week.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.